Have you ever heard this quoted before that love bears all things, believes all things, endures all things, love never fails? Or maybe you've heard it like this: it always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. What in the world does that really look like actionably from the biblical worldview? Let's talk about it. And so when we come to these last few descriptions, we've covered it always protects or it bears all things. Now it's always trusts. And this trust is very interesting because it's not as maybe we would think culturally. I'm going to trust this individual with my life. I'm going to trust this individual with all of my heart, or I'm going to trust this individual with everything in me at first sight and not even think twice about it. Really, what this is saying is that I'm going to choose to take the kindest views of individuals I encounter. Of course, when it comes to us as believers and as those who are walking in the gifts of the Spirit and moving in this love, there are so many people that we're going to encounter just from a spiritual, even religious foundation, may not necessarily think too kind of us, may have certain viewpoints, so many TikTok messages roaming around in their heads as opposed to what Christianity is all about, what the faith is all about, thinking they've got it all together. And so there's a lot of amped up animosity and hostility that we could oftentimes find ourselves being approached with in some way, shape, or form, whether that's online, whether that's in person, wherever it could be. And so our job, our responsibility, our calling when it comes to walking in this love is believing kind things about that individual, even when they don't about us. And I hope as you've seen throughout this entire chapter, there's no description that's given here where we are to wait for somebody to be a certain way for us to move in this love. This is something that we are called to regardless of what others do for us, towards us, whatever it might be, which is a very difficult thing to do and something that requires us to choose to die to our selfishness and choose to do things the way Christ has called us to each and every day. It's a daily decision. But with this trusting, I'm choosing to believe the kindest things about the people I encounter. So this means I don't choose to come into conversations, come into situations and encounters just believing the worst about them. Oh, you really don't want to hear it. Oh, you don't really care. Oh, you don't really want to be about this life. You're a bigot and you're this, that, and the third, right? We're just calling them all names. We're thinking of them to be the worst human beings to ever exist and all these other kinds of things. That just really doesn't get us anywhere, right? When we already choose to label somebody in such a negative light, it really gets hard to not see them that way, which in turn only gives us room and excuse to treat them in a poor manner, to treat them in a way that really isn't pleasing, really isn't loving, and therefore doesn't really give an opportunity for the gospel to be shared, doesn't give an opportunity for love to be witnessed and encountered, even if it's not in the formality of legitimately preaching the gospel into this person, but they can still receive the love and see the love that's being poured out of you towards them in some kind of capacity. It only happens if we come in and we're choosing to believe kind things about this individual. They are genuine, they're sincere, they're kind people, they mean well, and all these other different things that we could accumulate that could really describe who that person is in that moment, instead of allowing us to really run with maybe the emotions that they encounter us with, maybe the attitudes, mindsets, thoughts, statements, wild things that they might say or even try to do, which is, again, really challenging. But it gives us an opportunity to approach those situations and believe kind things about them. And even so, not even just towards people that we're witnessing towards, or we are having conversations with who may not believe what we choose to believe, which is the person of Jesus Christ. Maybe this is a friendship. Maybe this is a relationship. Maybe this is romantic, friendship, marriage, however this is, right? This love, again, that we are called to live in individually in Christ, only needing Christ to really achieve, instead of waiting till we get this big relationship and get to this big stage to be able to walk in. This moment still relates in the sense that I do want to be in great consideration of the people that I'm talking to, no matter the relation. And I want to believe kind things about them, even though something crazy might have been mentioned. This is something that causes us to really die to our quickness to offense. Because oftentimes in conversations that we have with people, when hostile environments are created, hostility rises, voices and tones hit octaves and higher gears, and tempers are flaring. It's really hard to believe kind things about people It's really hard to believe kind things about somebody trying to tear you down, trying to tear your character down. It's hard to believe kind things about somebody who has done you wrong, who has done you dirty in some of the most craziest ways possible. No one said it'd be easy. Very difficult. And when I think about the greater mission, the greater purpose of this encounter, of this conversation, when I think about what's really at stake here, it really helps me shift my mind and perspective to realize that, man, this isn't even about me. Because if I make it about me, I'm going to start responding the way that I would rather respond instead of what this situation really calls for. Because I also want to talk about it always hopes. So what does that look like applicably, right? Well, if it always trusts is wanting to believe the kindest things about individuals, even in some of their worst moments. Always hopes leads us to a place where we are choosing to hope for the best for that individual. There is hope in this love. There's an opportunity for a reason to hold on and hang on for the best of this individual. I believe in you. I believe you can do it. I believe you have the capacity to do it. I have hope that one day this person will turn around and come to Christ. I really do believe and hope that this person will open their eyes and start seeing things and start growing spiritually. I really hope that this person will begin to start moving right by others around them. If it's in a relationship and a connection that you might have with somebody, I really hope that they just start getting things together. I really hope that they start learning and picking up on some things that will really advance their lives moving forward. I really hope for the best of this individual. And hope goes a long way, y'all. If you've ever known what it's like to be hopeless, you just don't have a reason to believe that anything good is going to happen. If you can relate to those moments, having hope changes the game. Having people who believe in you and have hope for you changes the game. It changes the way that you view the world. It changes your scenario. It changes your environment. It all of a sudden becomes more uplifting, more encouraging, more impactful, more empowering for where you're going, where you're headed, where you are. It's something about having hope. Somebody who is in your corner, who believes the best for you, who believes the best about you, being able to be in other people's corners, who believe the best about them. This love grounds us in the capacity to be able to express such for others. When we're sharing the gospel, when we're moving in our gifts, when we're edifying the body with our spiritual gifts, when we are being useful in that space, having hope that, man, something clicked, something sat in. Something was heard that was able to reach the heart of the individual I was speaking to. This is an opportunity to plant a seed, because some plant, some water, but God ultimately gives the increase, right? So I'm hoping that this seed that's planted in this individual's life can be something that will magnificently turn one day potentially into something beautiful. So I want to believe kind things about other people. I want to believe the best things for other people, and I want to keep believing for the best. Then finally, the last description that I want to highlight, always perseveres, or it endures all things. And this is something that actually ties into what we started this entire section with the description of patience. Patience that breeds endurance, long suffering, how endurance is gained in this journey. 1000% endurance is necessary when it comes to this love. Patience is necessary when it comes to this love, because we want to think of the mission at hand, right? Being the hands and feet of Jesus, and loving on others who we encounter, and being available to people. And I think when you really walk in this love, you're going to encounter a lot of things. You're going to be challenged a whole heck of a lot in terms of your selfishness, your ego. There's going to be a lot of opportunities you're going to have in front of you that you kind of don't want to do. You don't want to partake in. You don't want to invest your time in. You don't really want to entertain even. And so this love gives us the capacity to really endure through those things, long suffer through those things. So even though this is something that I may not want to be a part of fully, even though this is something I may not really want to really invest my time in right now, I am choosing to reach into this space of depending on God to give me the strength I need to endure this moment, this experience, this space that I might be sharing with an individual that could lead to them experiencing Christ in an interesting way that they have never seen. That could lead to this person experiencing a love that they've never seen. This endurance is built only when patience is tested. So I want you to think about all the areas where you might be impatient And you might be real quick to make moves, get out of places. You don't really want to put up with it. You're very short-tempered. You're very short-fused in a lot of ways, in a lot of areas, for a lot of nonsense and foolishness. Like this love, you really won't make it out of here without your patience being tested and without impatience rising up in you that causes you to slow down. You really won't get out of like really applying this text full-heartedly without having some days of frustration, some days of tears, some days where you're going to potentially catch the quickest attitude if you're not careful. Because like, I really don't want to do this, and it's been a long day, and I'm not a fan, and I'm good on that. We look at it as an opportunity to love. Love goes out of its own way. Really, I mean, loving other people comes at a cost. And this is one of the many costs that we've seen throughout this entire chapter of what it means to express such a love. It comes at a cost. I have to be willing to die to myself at some point for the greater good of the love of Christ being exemplified through my heart and life. And that does include enduring some things, some tough conversations, enduring some tough seasons, enduring some potential areas of disagreement, and enduring a lot of things that maybe you wouldn't typically put up with when it comes to other people. You might be able to look back and say, man, there was a day where I didn't have patience for this. There was a day where I did not make time for this, and I was gone, and you didn't have to worry about me again. But for some reason, I'm here, and I'm sticking it out, and I'm enduring it, and I'm putting up with a lot of this craziness happening. Now, again, I want you guys to hear all of this context in a real legitimate light, because in no way, shape, or form does this encourage that you ought to stay in poor, toxic relationships. This text does not encourage that others should stay in abusive settings and situations and scenarios. That is a space and an area where that individual isn't even available to be honored anymore, because they have now placed themselves in a position where they have dishonored you in every way possible. You can't really apply that application to such a scenario. So as I've said before, and of course in future videos I may make, I want to encourage that we don't stick in places of toxicity and label that as hard work or love, because that is not it. This, again, when we're moving in it in truth towards other people, especially those who we are aligned in matching values of, if we're thinking of relationships we're creating with one another, I shouldn't expect toxicity. I shouldn't expect abuse, and I shouldn't expect those things. But when it happens, because we all know it does happen, we all know it's legitimate, we all know that there are so many people who call themselves Christians who yet move in abusive manners. We know this to be true. We don't stay there, and we don't apply this idea that we just need to persevere and fight on. Heck no, get out of Dodge, because they don't care enough to honor you, and they have lost their opportunity in positioning to be honored, because the actions they're doing isn't honorable. And so we need to leave that. But when it comes to this in any other context, in the generalities that are outside of abusive, toxic scenarios, this is a love. When we talk about perseverance, when we talk about resiliency, when we talk about a love that sometimes calls you to remain and not leave, a love that calls you not to flee and look for early exits, but to really build endurance, to fight through some things. Hey, I know it's just for the moment. We're at odds and disagreement. We're not feeling each other for the moment, but this is not always. We'll recover. We'll figure it out. We'll put some things together and keep moving. When our relationships are tested with one another, perseverance, resiliency, endurance, patience, yep, needed. Dying to yourself, What's really the issue here? Lord, deal with my heart, because everything in me wants to walk away, do away, flee, because I'm uncomfortable, because this is uneasy, because this is not fun. These are moments, y'all. I'm telling you, these are moments that we are called to die to ourselves in ways that we may have never thought we were capable of, or that we were called to. And I want to give you the blueprint to be able to understand what is really helping you persevere, and what's really helping you remain, and what's really helping you not look for early exits when uncomfortability arises. And it's coming back to the person of Christ. I'm telling y'all that he is the root behind this entire love, as Paul is right now. And in fact, we can't even really walk and comprehend this love without Christ, without understanding God, without understanding these biblical scriptures that are in front of us. So Christ is the rock. Christ is the one that we ought to lean in and rest in. Why? Because his love is complete. His love is perfect. His love is what gives us the capacity to lead in love, to move in love. I can't really love the right way without leaning into him. There's no way. Without really resting in God and resting in Christ, I can't really express this love to other people. I can't be the one to say I'm going to stick around and we're going to work through this. Because relationships take work. We all know this. Whatever level it is, it takes work. You're going to have to put some equity. You're going to have to put some work. You're going to have to involve yourself in the relationships you choose to create and carry for the longevity. You're going to have to. And without it, without you willing to put in the equity and the work, it's always going to be a struggle. Without your willingness to commit to understanding that individual, without your willingness to be flexible and be vulnerable, without your willingness to have those tough conversations, without your willingness to build resiliency and recognize that everything isn't going to be so sweet and easy, but I'm committed to getting this thing right. I'm committed to building this up with this individual. I'm committed to understanding this individual because I know the value that's present here. It changes the game. Like, this doesn't mean that you're not going to have arguments and disagreements and that you're not going to see eye to eye. Like, this does not mean that any of those things won't happen. Christian couples still argue. Believers still have disagreements with one another, at odds with one another, not agreeing on things. Anger, flurries, all those kinds of things still happen. But guess what? Even when that happens, it's coming back to our values that allows us to look at the situation together instead of allowing the situation in conflict to turn us against each other. We're able to look at it and say, what's the real issue? What's the real issue here? What are we really pursuing in this moment? What's the problem? So we can get on the same page on being able to deal with the issue instead of allowing our pride to amp us up to where the issue now then becomes the thing that causes us to drift apart. And again, y'all, I don't want y'all to just picture this in a romantic setting. It's very true. Happens in there too. Marital happens in there too. Friendships too. We all need friendships and good people that we can rock with and do this life with, build community with. So we got to be able to step back and look at those things. And somebody somewhere in that connection, hopefully and prayerfully both. But we know that there are opportunities and times where pride and stuff like that flares up. Somebody's got to go to Christ in that moment. Somebody's got to go to Christ in that space in prayer. God, help us. God, deal with my heart in this situation. God, deal with me in this situation because I'm really amped up. Key is in the back. I'm ready to turn up on this ninja if he I'm ready to help me, Lord. Recenter my mind and my heart on the things of you and help me to really be able to be willing to make the adjustments necessary to keep this thing going. Perseverance is a huge deal. Just like we mentioned in the beginning, we began this entire section with patience. Love is patient. Now we're ending verse 7 with perseverance. You cannot escape this love without building patience. One of the hardest things for me that I'm still working through, and is not a perfect work, but a continual work in progress. The willingness to be patient. And in the midst of building this patience, you're going to have so many obstacles you run into that are going to test and try your patience in minuscule ways and in major ways. So many times where you're going to feel frustrated. You might cry your tears. You might be really upset at how you can't get your way and you can't go do what you want to do to that person. You don't get the opportunity to be selfish for once and just let them have a piece of your mind and go crazy. You're going to have days like that. It's a part of the walk. But it's when we are able to get a greater understanding of not just the mission at hand, but being rooted in the love of Christ for ourselves. This is what gives us the capacity to even consider and move in this way. And that, I think, is the love that so many people want to experience, that you and I desire to experience. And we have the opportunity to experience with the person of Christ, therefore being able to share with others such an experience that brings them to him. Through the lives we live, through how we treat them, through how we respond to them. But it causes us, y'all, to die to ourselves every day. Because without that, we are going to step in the way hard. And it's our pride that's going to get in the way. Because it's exactly what the opposite of all of this that's described is. Our pride's going to get in the way. Before you know it, the relationship is dwindled. We've lost the opportunity to really connect with somebody. And I don't want you to hear this and think, oh, well, then, dang, I really disappointed God because I lost the opportunity. No. God can still do an amazing work And just because you are no longer in contact with that person doesn't mean God can't still work on that person, because God didn't need us in the first place. God was just using us in that moment. But I do want you to use that as a reflection. And like, did I really have to say that? Did I really have to allow my selfishness to get in the way there? Was that so serious and so bad now that I'm removed from the situation that I had to respond in that way in order to get my point across, in order to get what I wanted? Did I really have to move like that? Did I really have to act on my offended feelings and expose all their dirt on social media? Did I really have to act like that and that messy and give them a piece of my mind in the moment and say some things that I now regret? You know, I just think that there are some things that we just have to really be willing to consider. Trials are bound to show up when we walk in this love with others we encounter. It has to be your willingness to persevere. It has to be your willingness to think the kind things about them, to view them in a kind light. It has to be our willingness to hope and believe for the best of that individual, for the individual, that allows those encounters to be authentic and genuine. I don't think, y'all, I'm going to be so honest and I'll end here. I don't think there's anything quite like a love that doesn't demand you to be a certain way in order to receive or even be given the love that's granted. And we're going to come back and we're going to wrap all of this up. And this might be more of what I share there. This love is so amazing to know that this is what gets us closer to realizing and encountering and experiencing a love that tells us that I don't have to have it all together. I don't have to be perfect. I have my flaws and jack-ups and mess-ups and faulties. Not everything looks the best and looks the cleanest, but I'm still loved. Not for what I can do and not based on performance, but I'm still loved. And I think finding you friends and relationships that reflect such a love has to require in some way, shape, or form us and our willingness to walk in that love ourselves in order to find it and experience it with other people. And it's a hard thing, y'all. I can't express that enough, but it's something that we are able to do with Christ as our foundation. The only way it seems impossible is because we're not connected to the one who makes the impossible possible. So love bears all things, hopes all things, believes all things, endures all things. It always protects, it always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And it is because of this agape love that we are able to walk in. It is because of the love of Christ. It is because of this unconditional love that love never fails. Love fails when our human pride gets in the way, when our humanity gets in the way, because it no longer is love when we put ourselves in the front. It's no longer desiring to serve and consider and be compassionate towards others. It's now all becoming about me and what I want and how I feel and how I want to go about doing things, and never considering the other individual. This love is incapable of failing. And the proof of the incapability of it failing is the resurrection. Like, Jesus walked in this love, y'all, and changed the game. I want you to look at woman that was caught in adultery. I want you to reflect on the woman at the well. I want you to reflect on the woman who had the issue of blood. I want you to think about all these encounters that Jesus had with people throughout the text who needed to experience this love in such dire, straight moments, and it changed the game. Because love is what changes, not force, not anger, not grieving other people, trying to make them feel bad, not trying to play hero. Letting love lead you, letting this love lead you, and lead you into places and encounters that you can experience with people that will just shake and rock your world. Allowing love to lead you, not to have an answer and to fix people, but just to be present. Just to let them know that they're seen and heard and that you are with them. It's an amazing love, and there's no other love like it. So that's it. That's all I got for you. We journeyed this far into 1 Corinthians. In our next video, we're going to kind of start wrapping things up, some takeaways from this entire journey. So that's what we're going to wrap up with in our next video. I'm so excited for it. And I appreciate you guys so much for kicking it with your boy. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, turn on the post notifications so you'll know the next time we're posting. Share this with a friend. Share this entire series with a friend who could benefit from hearing such a breakdown that is challenging, yet I promise you, once you start walking into it, so beneficial. My life has completely transformed since really sitting in this text all year long in 2023. And these are just now some of the takeaways that I'm sharing with you, or at least getting around to sharing with you, that I hope you find beneficial in some way, shape, or form. I appreciate you guys oh so much. And as always, until the next conversation, be easy and be breezy, my friend. Peace.